Hello, it is Tuesday, May 17th, 2022 at 6:57 p.m. Eastern Time. It's the primary election day for the midterm elections. Voting for primary in Pennsylvania. If you're registered independent, you cannot vote in the primary election. So it's a perfect day to talk conspiracy theories. Now, as you know, most of my conspiracy theories revolve around wireless waves and satellite systems. So I'm not going to let you down today. But I want to talk a little bit about these top secret satellites that we have no idea what's up there because we don't regulate space. And I've said it could be a Lionsgate satellite, it could be a Johnson & Johnson satellite, a CIA satellite, either the United States CIA or the Chinese CIA. Who knows what's up there? But I do want to talk a little bit about the CIA because I have theories about the CIA. It used to be the CID, the Central Intelligence Department. Department suggests that they get all of their funding from the taxpayer, from the federal budget. So it's self-contained. When you transition to a Central Intelligence Agency, an agency kind of implies that you can find funding wherever you want. You can have covert ops, selling crack cocaine in the ghettos, for example. Anywhere where you can get funding for your projects, you're allowed to do it because you're an agency. So my theory is that the CIA of the United States is highly involved in two industries, the pharmaceutical industry and the energy sector, specifically fossil fuels. And this is just because of the wars we've fought in the past 50 years have focused on oil-rich nations, and also that we were in Afghanistan where they grow a lot of opium to make opiates and other derivatives of opium. So you have your opiates, pharmaceutical industry getting their supplies from these nations, or the energy industry getting their supplies from oil-rich nations. So that's one reason I think there might be a Johnson & Johnson CIA hybrid satellite, top secret satellite that they use, or a whole system of them. Now with the energy sector, they may have developed satellites and to look for underground reserves of oil, coal, something that can focus a signal from a remote source and penetrate the ground. It's powerful enough to penetrate the ground several thousand feet and map out oil reserves. It makes sense that they would develop something like this. I said that the CIA might have a satellite that can focus energy on a property and say intercept all mobile telephone communications on that property, maybe at a high profile dinner party, something like that. This is something different with the energy industry, where they are trying to map out and find oil reserves so that they can use the Central Intelligence Agency to overthrow the government and get government friendly with the oil companies to exploit the fossil fuels. Now we can go even further. It's just going to keep evolving. Even if we go off fossil fuels, we're highly addicted and dependent on computers, computer devices, electronics. So this satellite could be used to find rare earth metals, reserves of rare earth metals, copper, things like that, by concentrating an energy beam into the ground from space that then bounces back to, say, ground-based sensors, or airplanes or something lower that can pick up and map 3D imaging of these reserves. So the technology may exist. It's a conspiracy theory, but the technology may exist that they can focus energy from a satellite onto large swaths of land or small parcels of property. Beams of wireless energy that are powerful enough to penetrate thousands of feet, maybe even miles underground. That's a powerful signal. Is it powerful enough to bake your blood? We'll get into that. But I want to talk about the Fern Hollow Bridge here in Pittsburgh. On January 28th, President Biden was set to make a speech about infrastructure, and conveniently the Fern Hollow Bridge, inconvenient for Pittsburghers, by the way, and the people who were on the bridge, but conveniently for a CIA loyal to President Biden, the Fern Hollow Bridge collapsed. It was a steel and concrete structure on the morning of the speech. Now, I want to talk about concentrating wireless energy again. Could there be a satellite or a weapon that can match the frequency or emit a frequency that vibrates the steel and concrete to such a degree that the bridge itself crumbles? I've seen footage of a bridge that was built and a wind storm hit it and vibrated at such a frequency that it fell to the ground. That was wind. Could wireless energy be focused on bridges, buildings, infrastructure to cause it to collapse? And does that technology exist? And is it equipped on satellites, or is it being beamed from a home base on planet Earth to a satellite to then be focused on specific pieces of infrastructure? So that's one conspiracy theory, that the Fern Hollow Bridge was targeted and brought down to help with the infrastructure bill passage pushed by President Biden. Now, I hate to knock someone when they're down. I'm not really trying to do that. I'm just trying to draw attention to the possibilities of these weapons. So there's been an increase in the past 20 or 30 years, conveniently, when we've had more wireless waves in the air, year after year, more intensity. A growing number of people who have been getting strokes, blood clots and strokes. The Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, former Mayor of Braddock, someone who is an outlier of the political system, someone who's different, who's a little bit more independent thinking, who wants to legalize marijuana, and very liberal person. He had a stroke 2 days ago before the primary election. He's running for senator. On the Democratic ticket, or the primary decides it today. He had a stroke 2 days ago. He's going to have a pacemaker. Now the question is, and this is a conspiracy theory, can certain frequencies bake the blood in your very veins and cause it to clot, being pumped to your brain and causing a stroke? Could energy have been focused on John Fetterman's house, on his vehicle, at his campaign rallies? Was he targeted by the conservatives who own these weapons, who own most of the technology we have, was he targeted? And now he's going to have a pacemaker, which is definitely affected by wireless waves. So is that now a bargaining? Is he now compromised? Could he be his very life blackmailed now, because they can say, hey, we can strike you with a beam of stuff that shuts your pacemaker off and kills you. So you're going to play ball the Washington way now, John Fetterman. These are questions I have, and that's a conspiracy theory. There's been a rising number of strokes. Is it because of all the wireless energy? Could a weapon focus wireless energy on someone's property, on their body, on their brain, on their body to the point that it emits a certain frequency that causes blood clots? Was John Fetterman targeted? I guess we'll never know. That's the beauty of the pharmaceutical industry, having the medical industrial complex in its back pocket. Just don't know. So moving on from that conspiracy theory into another one. What about these executives, like pharmaceutical executives that don't know that they're highly invested in the technology that their companies have? My example is my father-in-law, Casey Kohler. Now I know I've seen his gold fillings in his mouth. Has a satellite been focused on his house in Flemington, New Jersey since my wife was young, since they've had the technology? Was she collateral damage? Because she does twitch in her sleep. Much like my muscle twitching when I experienced the situation with the satellite, I believe. And did he know? Did he sign up just by owning executive stock or preferred stock? Does that qualify him for special communication satellites to focus on his houses, on his property, on his car? I say this because there's two situations with Casey Kohler. He had a high dollar hunting dog, a Deutsch Strauthauer. He has another one now, but the one before that was named Dutch, and it lived to 8 years or 9 years old. It died. It developed a seizure disorder. None of the other dogs in his litter developed this disorder. Didn't run in the line. The breeder was very worried about. I mean, this is a couple $1,000 dog to buy. The breeders were worried. But he developed a seizure disorder, where we'd have seizures out in the field. He was on all kinds of steroids and things to treat it. Could this be a sign that wireless waves were concentrated on that house or around Casey Kohler? My second example is that right at the beginning of COVID, Mr. Kohler developed a numbness in, I believe, his dominant hand, arm, and dominant leg and foot. Numbness. He's been to many doctors. They think it's a pinched nerve in his back. But he had an office job his whole life. He rode probably hundreds of thousands of miles on motorcycles, which could have caused that, I guess. But he wasn't lifting steel like my dad or doing demolition or anything really like that. He developed this numbness in his right hand, and I think his right hand and his right foot. It might be his non-dominant. Could that be the technology actually trying to hack his nervous system of his body using his gold fillings? Could it be a warning sign that they're actually trying to take over his motor functions? Best they could do is numb out his nervous system. They're experimenting on him. So that's my final conspiracy theory for the day. You have a dog that no other dog in his litter developed a seizure disorder. And you have a man who worked for Johnson & Johnson for 35 years, I think, or 40 years in an office, and you have top secret technology out there, and who knows what it's capable of. Anyhow, when Mr. Cooler came down with this episode of numbness of the situation, I did take all of the derogatory videos that I made referencing him and information on my website down to be in as a courtesy, since he was in somewhat failing health, and he is in a lot of pain now. So I don't want to make light of it, but I'm just saying, what if you don't know what your corporation is capable of? What if you do? I'm sure he knows what the pharmaceutical corporations are capable of, yet he continued to work for them. So are they continuing to experiment on him? Did they experiment on me? I think they did. I think they're running current experiments on all mentally ill people, because I think they have shadow companies that develop software for tracking medication that hospitals use. I don't think there's any regulation where there's a conflict of interest if a pharmaceutical company develops the software to track medication usage, symptoms, the information that psychiatrists and nurses use to log the information on patients. Who develops that software? Does pharmaceutical companies own controlling interest in these software companies? And if they do they have access to that information to handle damage control when these symptoms develop from a medication? So, who knows? They developed the medication, and they developed a way to track medication, and it's all under this big medical umbrella to help people, even though they're responsible to the shareholders' equity and stuff. Anyhow, that's all I got for today. Join me tomorrow when I talk about something else. Happy Conspiracy Day and happy primary election day. Go John Fetterman. If I could vote, I'd vote for you.